Hello. Hello, and welcome to another NERFA panel, particularly a special one where we're actually going to take the week off. But it was brought to our attention that the SVO grant basically became live last week, and there were a lot of issues with that and a lot of opportunity there that was particularly important for our community. Justin Nordell reached out to me, and we quickly put together a plan to address this, and I want to thank him for it. So we will be handing it off to Justin and his guest momentarily. But in the interim, as always, I want to remind you of the other services that we are rolling out for NERFA right now. As on next Monday, we have a performers discussion group. It's a wonderful peer group that's been meeting now for about 3 months. It is all about supporting each other for performers, songwriters, and artists to talk about the struggles they're going through and how we can all help each other. For any performers out there, highly recommend you give that a shot. It's a very caring and a wonderful community. 2 weeks after today, we have another panel also with Justin Nordell on outdoor opportunities, basically as presenters and artists embracing the opportunity of outdoor events. We'll be talking about things that people have to keep in mind as far as the technical resources that you need to make an outdoor show work, the legal and contractual ramifications of utilizing outdoor spaces in the age of COVID, and we'll talk to some people that have found some real success in that space. So by all means, please mark your calendars and plan to join us on Thursday, May 6th. We would love to have you. It's going to be a great group. We're finalizing the panelists, but it should be great. And 2 weeks after that, we have another panel that we are just finalizing on market funnels. This is a evolution of our panel from about a month ago on monetizing the internet that was very well received. And the panelists talked a little bit about marketing funnels and what they are. And there was a lot of interest. So we're actually going to do a whole session just on that. Please mark your calendars. We're bringing back Chris Robley and Dylan Shinholster, who are in that last panel. Rebecca Loby is unable to be there, but we're going to find another artist to represent that as well. So we're really excited about all of that. I hope you do give that a shot and keep up with us, because we're doing our best to keep up with you. Vaccines are a thing, and the world is changing, and that's sort of our only constant. So we're happy to be here with you. We're happy to do our best to serve you, and I'll see you soon. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my friend Justin Nordell.
Well, thank you very much, Ethan. Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Nordell, and I am the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Folk Song Society, presenters of the oldest continuously run outdoor music festival in North America, the Philadelphia Folk Festival, which we are able to continue to say because we did a digital version of our event in 2020 that involved a number of outdoor live streams and components. So we are very excited that we're able to keep our moniker. It's been a difficult year for everyone we know, and that's why I was so excited when the Save Our Stages bill got approved amongst so many other things back in December of 2020. And this was certainly an amazing opportunity for presenters and the like to be able to receive some aid and assistance from our government for the difficult year that so many of us had. December, we were rejoicing. January, we were waiting. February, we were waiting. March, we were waiting impatiently. Then April came around, and they announced that April 8th, the Shuttered Venue Operating Grant would be opening on that date, and we were all very excited and tried to get together as many things as possible. And we at the Philadelphia Folk Song Society have employed an absolutely astounding organization, your part-time controller, which are nonprofit accounting experts. And we've had them as our partners since, I want to say 2016. Working with the Philadelphia Folk Song Society, and honestly, I can say with 100% certainty, we've just never had a better grasp on our finances. We've never had cleaner and better books. We've never received more grants. Having everything so incredibly organized and having everything be so accessible to both our board as well as grantors just made everything so much easier for us. So when YPTC put together a number of amazing webinars about the SVO grant, I jumped at the chance to learn as much as I could about them and about the grant itself. So when everything opened on the 8th, there were some technical difficulties. Personally, it took me about 40 minutes to even log in, even though I hadn't created my own account previously. Then I get in and I'm, going through and starting to gather my stuff and uploading everything, and nothing will upload. And so I'm working on everything that I can, and then all of a sudden everything stops working. I hit refresh and they say, oh, well, we've taken it down and we're going to be putting it back up. So that's when I spoke to Ethan and said, we at NERFA have so many presenters that really would benefit from this. I think it would behoove us to get as many people together as we can so that they're as prepared as possible when things reopen. And I was very excited to reach out to Jim, who is my part-time controller buddy, who then put us in contact with none other than Justine Townsend, who is the person who I went to the webinars to see. So this is an absolutely wonderful opportunity for you to find out just whether or not you are eligible for the SVO grant. And if you're not, also what other money is out there for you. And then in addition to that, what you need to be prepared for when the SVO grant reopens. Now, I'm sorry to say, we don't know when that's going to be. Yay, the government. However, again, it's just great to be prepared. So I'm very, very excited to welcome Justine Townsend, who is not only an employee of your part-time controller, she's also an adjunct professor at the University of Houston and has a background in music. She was with the Houston Symphony as their director of finance for many moons, and we are so, so, so privileged and excited to have Justine with us tonight. Thank you, Justine.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And I'm excited to hear what a great experience you're having with YPTC. Our mission is really to help nonprofits achieve their missions through strong financial management. Yep. So I'll share a little bit about YPTC later, but we can dive right in because that was so good. And Justin's experience was not unusual compared to everyone else's. We did get a tweet from the SBA today, which at this point in time, that's pretty much the only way we're getting updates. So we got a tweet today saying they have figured out how to fix it, and they have fixed it, but they're working on some other issues. And I think the folks who tried and maybe know what those other issues were, which was like people were getting automatically told they were ineligible when they definitely were not ineligible. They were definitely eligible, depending on how they were answering some of those questions. So we're very hopeful that they are fixing all of that. I'm certainly tweeting at them every single day the things that I need to see fixed. Since that's the best way to communicate with them. So they did tweet back and say that they are going to fix the FAQs. I know that if any of you were trying to upload those documents, then you probably have started to use the FAQs that they posted on the SBA website as kind of your guidebook. And there was a lot of conflicting information in there, a lot of confusion. So I specifically pointed out to them some of the issues with different pages that were directly opposite of each other, and in their responses, yes. So hopefully we're getting new FAQs. They did tweet back and say that they are going to review the FAQs and scrub them of the garbage information. So I'm very excited and looking forward to those. And as soon as we get those new FAQs, check back to, and at the end of this presentation and in your links section, you'll be able to see the links to the YouTube channel with all of my webinars. And if you just subscribe to that channel, then as soon as we get the new FAQs, I promise pretty much within 24 hours, I'll have a video up explaining them and understanding and like saying, okay, here's what they changed. Here's what we need to do differently. And here's how but for right now, what we can focus on is, are you really eligible and what can you do to get a head start? They are going to give us a warning before they reopen. But they won't tell us how much warning we're going to get. So it could be a week, it could be 2 weeks, it could be a couple of days warning that we're going to get. I'm hopeful that they will open it up by next week. We really need to get this money out to people. And I'm very, very hopeful that they will move quickly through the approval and review process. So with that, and we're going to talk about not just if you're eligible, but what does that mean? If you are eligible, how do you prove that? Because you're going to have to pull documents to prove your eligibility. So I want to start with the eligibility requirements for everyone, and then we can pivot to specific types of organizations and how you'll apply and what will be different for you. So we can start with the for everybody, and let's see. There we go. So now you can see all of the requirements for everybody. Fully operational on February 29th, 2020. Now, if you are seasonal, right? So you have a seasonal performance period, or you only have one part of the year where all of your performances are, right? So you have a festival and everything happens in that festival time period. And in February, there were no performances. That's okay, as long as you were operational, normal for your business. So even though it's seasonal, it's okay. Reduced revenue of at least 25% in any one quarter in 2020 compared to the corresponding quarter in 2019. So for example, let's say in 2019, in the second quarter, I had $100,000 of revenue. Then in 2020, I had $75,000. That is a 25% reduction over the same quarter. It'd be second quarter in 2019, second quarter in 2020. As long as you have one quarter with a 25% reduction in revenue, that you meet that qualification. You're not listed on the stock exchange or a subsidiary of any entity listed, right? So no public companies. This is for private. And then I'm loving Justin's dancing. It's just delightful. So the company does not own or operate in any other country. So you can have international performances, but you cannot have a regular office and regular operations in another country. So fine if you travel and tour, but not okay if you're there all of the time or if you have a whole office there regularly. You can't be in more than 10 states in the United States, right? So if you have a chapter here and a chapter here and a chapter here and a chapter here in 4 different states, you're fine. But if you have 11 chapters, that's too spread out and you're too big, basically. This is from the Small Business Administration, so they're really trying to focus on small, right? Okay, and then you cannot have more than 500 employees. Now, this is FTEs. So like Justin said, I have a symphony background. So you got, 200 musicians on a stage when you got the expanded string section, right? And which you would only do that when the artistic director is in town. Nobody can tell the difference. That's expensive. So that is your full-time employee equivalent. So if you have a bunch of part-time employees because you're seasonal, then don't worry, you're going to stack those part-time employees up to equal a full-time employee. And so if you have 500 part-time employees that are all working 10 hours a week, then you would add those up and make it equivalent to a full-time employee, and you would not meet that 500 employee threshold. You received less than 10% of gross revenue from federal sources in 2019. So this means, and for most of you guys, this isn't going to be a problem, but if you got an NEA grant in 2019, that was more than 10% of your total revenue, that would disqualify you. or if you got a NEH, the National Endowment for the Humanities, if you got one of those. Now, if you got a state or local grant, that is not included in this. It's just federal dollars. Now, yeah. So if it was state money that was given to you, but turns out that state money was a pass through and it originally came from the federal government, then that would disqualify you. Most state grants, though, are coming from your state funding,
Right.
and it shouldn't be a problem. Especially because the feds don't really fund the arts other than the NEA. And those grants are usually pretty small. And then no performances or merchandise of a prurient or sexual nature. So if you're a strip club, you cannot apply. If you're a burlesque show, you cannot apply. So if you're mixing burlesque and folk music, this is not the grant for you. Okay, let's start talking. Now, Justin, you had to go through all of that process of evaluating yourself. Did anything trip you up there? Was there anything that you needed help to get there?
What was interesting for us is that we're a multi-headed beast. So we are an arts organization. We have our own venue in Philadelphia. So as the Shuttered Venue Operating Grant, of course, it was, okay, well, let's move forward and do everything for the venue. But if I'm being honest, the majority of our ticket sales and a lot of our revenues come from the Philadelphia Folk Festival. In addition to that, we have two other events, our Spring Fling and Fall Fling, that are considerable moneymakers for us. So it was very confusing at first to how do I present the fact that we have 4 kind of very specific buckets that we receive revenue from that are all kind of performing arts based. So how did we move forward with that?
Yes, that really helps us move into the next piece. So I'm going to share this page real quick, just so you can see. I'm not going to leave this one up because I want to talk through it, and I don't want you guys to get distracted by way too many words on a page. So I'm going to pull it up just so you can see it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so it is a little grid that helps you kind of determine which bucket do you fit in. And we'll go through those buckets. We're not going to talk about motion picture theater operators or museum operators, because I doubt anyone in this group fits into either of those buckets. But if you think you do, here are those eligibility requirements, and you have our contact information. You can reach out to me and I'll be happy to talk to you about those two. But we're going to focus on that very first block and that very last block, because I think those are the 2 blocks. After hearing about NERFA, I think those are the 2 blocks that most of you guys are going to fit into. So we're going to focus our efforts there. Okay, so first thing I want to say, though, is if you are planning to apply, if you find out tonight that you are eligible and that you want to do this, and it's so, it is a great way to get money that you desperately need, right? Because grant amounts are 45% of your 2019 gross earned revenues. So that is not net revenue. That is gross.
Which is amazing.
That is amazing. That is 45% of your total ticket sales from 2019, and merchandise sales and food sales and alcohol sales. You can bunch all of that up together and get 45% of that. The max is 10 million.
There's a number of other things that they put in some of the updates, which one of the ones that really benefits myself and a couple of other people that I know are here tonight is memberships. If you have memberships that qualify for free things that you're presenting or discounts or in your venue, you can include your membership dues, which for us, that's an automatic, 6-figure boost right there.
That's right. And those membership dues are earned revenues. So because they are it's an exchange transaction. You're giving them something for those memberships, so it becomes earned revenue. So if you think you're going to do this, I really encourage you to first go get a DUNS number. If you don't have one and you don't know what I'm talking about, DUNS, there is a great little tutorial on the SBA's website. And I also have a tutorial which is linked and that you can go watch. And it's a 10-minute video that walks you through getting your DUNS number, why it's important, what you need to do, and the SAM.gov registration and why you need to do that. So the SAM.gov registration right now is taking about 7 days for them to fully process. So I would say if you think that you qualify and that you're eligible and you want to do this, step one tonight before you go to bed, as soon as you sign off from this, go and register. Go get that DUNS number and go register at SAM.gov. Okay. Also, the other thing that we have to talk about, if you're eligible and you're going to apply, you need to, and you haven't applied for your second round of PPP yet, go do that, because you cannot apply for the PPP after you've applied for the SVOG unless you've already gotten your denial letter saying you're not eligible or whatever the other reason you made a mistake in your applications.
And that's a change, because at first they said you can either do the SVOG or the second round of PPP. And I'll say that we were very much so, okay, SVOG, that's going to be more beneficial for us. And then when they said, oh, okay, well, you can get the PPP for the second round, and then they'll just take it out of the SVOG, I will say that we still were like, oh, well, we're just going for the SVOG. And then when the SVOG went all wonky, hey, you know what? Let's get that second round of PPP.
Yeah, get that second round of PPP. Get it now. Also, we don't know when the portal is going to open up, and we don't know how long it's going to take them to process these. So to process these applications and get the funds out. And I know that the EIDL, which is we'll talk about at the end, is other options for money you can get. Those have been taking a little bit longer for them to process since we've had some administration changes and people are settling into their new jobs. And so there has been a bit of a slowdown. So you don't have to choose anymore. Go get that PPP. Okay. So live venue operator or promoter, theatrical producer, live performing arts organization operator. We're going to start there. We'll get to talent reps in a minute. Okay. This must be your principal business. What does that mean? It means that the largest percentage of your revenue, expenses, and employee time come from operating, promoting, producing, or performing in a qualified venue. So if you don't own your own venue, you can still get this grant. It does not make you ineligible if you do not own your own venue. You will just need to prove up that you're using qualified venues, and we're going to get to that in a second. So how you prove that the largest percentage of your revenue, expenses, and employee time come from operating, promoting, producing, or performing in a qualified venue, you prove that through two ways. One, you have your quarterly financials for 2019. You're going to have to put together quarterly financials. That's a calendar quarter, not your fiscal quarter. So some of you might have weird fiscal year ends. Let's say you have a May 31st year end. That's not a quarter end, right? So you're not going to have any financials that end June 30, which is what they're looking for, because that would be the end of the second quarter of 2019, right?
So I will share that this was a bit of a wonky thing for us because we changed our fiscal year in 2019.
Oh my goodness.
So I've been the executive director for 6 years and counting. When I came on board, we were 4/1 through 3/31. So we were April 1st through March 31st of any given year. And thankfully in 2018, my wonderful board of directors decided that was lunacy and didn't really work for us as much anymore. So we moved it to be a calendar year. So for us, our 2019 actually has 2 fiscal years, because we have fiscal year 2019 that ended in March 31st, and then we have second fiscal year 2019 that ended December 31st. So I was a little kind of worried going into this, because I was like, oh, we're going to be the weirdos that have the wonky thing. Luckily, with the quarterlies, I can just take out the tenderloin, if you will, which for me is my July, August, September. That's my tenderloin.
Perfect. And so it's exactly that you can show them by quarter. And this is also a great way to demonstrate your seasonality, right? So you've got your 2019, which is your base year, quarterly financials. So you can show maybe your first quarter, normally nothing's happening. Second quarter, stuff is starting to happen. Third quarter, that's your year, that's your time to shine. That's your summer, right? And then fourth quarter, it's a little bit different, right? And so that really helps them see how your business was seasonal in your base year. The other way you prove that you are using qualified venues, and we're going to talk about this a ton, is contracts with those venues. So anytime you perform at a venue, there should be, I hope,
Justine, we are folk, so sometimes there's a little bit of a handshake with a spit in it.
Listen, I teach artists. I work with artists. I am married to an artist. I have 2 children that are artists. I get it. I understand that paperwork is maybe not everybody's favorite thing to do. And it doesn't feel very valuable. So if you don't have those contracts still, then you may have to reach out to the theater where you were performing and or whatever venues you used in that year to get those copies of those contracts, right? You will also need to show cover charges or ticket sales. So you're going to need to prove this with box office reports, which sounds super scary, but it's literally just a printout of how many tickets you sold. Now, if you have dynamic ticket pricing, which most concerts, most performances these days, you've got some kind of dynamic ticket pricing working there, right? So like more tickets we sell, the demand goes up, so the price goes up, right?
Well, for us, ours we have a membership rate, we have a non-member rate, and then we also have a door rate. We also sometimes have, with specifically the festival, we have, of course, early bird, advanced, preemie, like whatever we call it that year, and then of course the gate. So that's another place where it was a little different depending on what we were doing.
Exactly. And so all you have to do to decode that information for them is basically just provide a schedule saying, we sold this many tickets at this dollar amount, this many tickets at this dollar amount, this many tickets at this dollar amount. Because most box office reports are just going to say total tickets, total dollar. So that is a way to help get around that. And if there's more detail, provide that detail. They want to see the individual ticket sales. You'll have to provide that for February 2019. Now, if you didn't have any performances in February 2019, like we were saying earlier, that's okay. You're going to pick any month between January 2019 and February 2020. So any month, January to February. I would choose a month where you have all of the paperwork and you had the most amount of activity. So whatever that Venn diagram is for you on a month, the month you did the best job keeping track of your paperwork and where you had the most performances or you sold the most tickets or it was the biggest month for you guys, that would be the month that you would choose if you have no performances in February 2020. And I believe I said February 2019 and that was a mistake.
It's February 2020. I have a quick question now that you've said that. Am I allowed to pick a different month if I have prettier months than February 2020?
Well, if you had any performances at all in February 2020, nope.
Well, gosh darn it, we certainly did. And they were some great performances, so I'll just go with those.
Perfect. Okay, so also your performers, they need to be paid fairly. So it needs to be based on either a percentage of the cover, a guaranteed amount, or some other mutually beneficial agreement. This is for nonprofits mostly because nonprofits will have kind of weird deals with their performers. They can't be volunteers. They need to be paid, even if you're a nonprofit. But sometimes you can have like some weird deals with them. So especially like if you have a union for this one and not for this one and not for that one. So how do you prove that up? How do you prove that you paid performers fairly? Contracts. agreements with those performers. Now, if you are the performers, then you don't have to provide those contracts to prove up that you were paid fairly, but you will have to provide those contracts to prove up that you had revenue in a qualified venue. Okay. Now, this is either or, so it is not both. We're going to talk about the next eligibility requirement for this group is either or. So you either had at least 70% of the 2019 earned revenue of your organization generated through cover charges, ticket sales, production fees, production reimbursements, nonprofit educational activities. So let's say you do field trips during your off season and you go to schools and you introduce them to folk music and the school pays you a fee. That would be an educational initiative, and that would be earned revenue that you would include in this calculation. Or the sale of event beverages, food, or merchandise, as long as none of the merchandise is sexual in nature. So if you qualify under this earned revenue piece with the 70% of your earned revenue in 2019 came from your activities as a performer or your activities as a performing arts organization or your activities as a promoter of performing arts or a producer, then you need to prove that up through quarterly financial statements, your quarterly financial statements. So 2 birds, 1 stone. Do those quarterly financial statements and they'll cover you on a lot of things. You also, so this is the or if you don't qualify for the 70%, don't freak out. If your principal business activities include selling tickets at least 60 days before the event, and that's on average in 2019. So let's say you had one time where you didn't get your event posted until 45 days before the event, but the rest of the time it was 60 days, 75 days, 90 days before the event, then you'll average out.
Luckily, I'm very happy to say I know a lot of you who are out there that are watching that do your full year calendars, put everything on sale at the same time, either in January or a lot of you in the fall for the year. So this is where you may have been kind of laughed at by some people that you're planning too far in advance, Hey, this is your time to shine.
That's right, because then you don't have to do that pain in the butt revenue analysis. You can just say, boom, I sell all my tickets way in advance. And how do we prove that? Marketing materials. That's it. You just need to show that you were, the marketing materials need to be dated. What I love for this is link to your social media, because your social media has a timestamp on it and those don't get deleted. So sometimes when we are posting marketing materials in different places, on the internet, maybe on your website, maybe you've moved it since then, or it's not there anymore. You don't have maybe a bank or archives of your previous marketing materials. You can do it in print, but you can also just provide them a spreadsheet with all the links to your social media and every time you announced a show. And as long as the date that's being announced on there in the timestamp for when it was posted, you got 60 days in between, you're covered. That is a lot easier than breaking down all of your revenue sources into little pieces to say, well, if we break up, and this is the other thing, is that if you have contributed revenue and some of your contributed revenue for my nonprofits out there, let's say you have underwriters. Do you have underwriters, Justin, for your show?
Yeah. Yes. So we've got some underwriters and some sponsors that certainly will either underwrite a performer or a stage or some of the things that we take on. So yes, this is something that's very interesting to me because contributed revenue is something that we have a lot of and just seemed like something that we weren't able to put in.
You can a little bit of it. So do you give those underwriters any benefits?
We absolutely do. They get, of course, tickets to the event, space at the event, the ability to, talk to our audiences, et cetera, et cetera.
Do they get advertising? Do they get their name in lights? Do they get their name in the playbill?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Oh my gosh, you sold them advertising. You can break that out as earned revenue.
Well, then I'm glad I'm here tonight because I didn't put that in my initial application. Hey-o, writing it down.
That was in video 3 of my webinars series.
I swear I watched it, but I didn't take that away from it.
That's okay. I talk fast. Okay. So now you've met all of those requirements. You've either met that 70% earned revenue threshold, or you've met that I sell my ticket 60 days in advance threshold. And you've met all the other thresholds. So now we get to move on and get into the really weird stuff. And I did a whole video called The Weird Stuff because some of the stuff is really weird, right?
Yep.
You think it was weird, Justin, when you had to like go get a floor plan?
The floor plan was wonky, but here the weirdest one was receipts for our lighting and our sound equipment.
Right?
Which some of our lighting and sound equipment, I'm going to be honest, is from like the 70s. So it was like,
Who has receipts from the 70s? They're all faded out anyway. Yeah, they fade over time. So there's some alternatives for receipts from the 70s that we'll get to in just a second. So one of the first things that you have to prove is that if you own or operate your own performing space, so if you don't own the space, but you lease it and you have a venue and you lease it all of the time, so you are the main tenant of that venue, then you're the operator of that venue, even if you're not the owner. So if you own or operate the venue must have two things: a defined audience space and a defined performance space. Now, the seating can move, especially like concert venues. Sometimes we have seated concerts, sometimes we have standing concerts. So we would expect those seats to move. Don't get confused. There's a requirement for one of the other buckets that their seating can't move, but that's not you guys. Your seating can move. It's just the place where your audience is cannot. So as long as you have, this is always where the audience is in whatever configuration we have them, and this is always where the performers are, right? In whatever configuration we have that handled. How do we prove it? We prove it with a floor plan or pictures of the space. So you can run around, take pictures of your venue if you don't have a floor plan. Because who has a floor plan, especially if you have one of those really old venues that was built a long time ago? You probably don't have a floor plan for that.
And for festivals, site maps also would work so that you can be able to show where your stages are and where your audiences are.
Very good. Very good point. Yes. Site maps are all about it, especially if you come in and you build a stage.
Mm-hmm.
Then the site maps of those built stages. And that is okay because it's still a defined audience space and a defined performance space, even though the stage was built. Okay. The other thing you have to have, Justin teased this, the lighting rig, the sound equipment, and a public address system. Now we have to prove that you have those things. So you can prove it with receipts, which may be ancient, or if you have insurance, hopefully you've listed these items in your insurance. Because if they're listed in your insurance as a covered asset, then all you have to do is send in your insurance policy. Done. If not, then again, you can take pictures of the equipment and get it appraised, which that can take some time. So hopefully you've listed it in your insurance.
I have a question, Justine, for
Yes.
some of the festivals that I know are here. Some of them rent all of their lighting and sound equipment.
Yeah.
Now, are they able to show the receipts for the rentals? Is that still
Yes.
kosher?
Absolutely. The receipts for the rentals cover it. So even if you have a regular venue space, and let's just say you have just the lighting, kind of not the whole system,
Mhm.
just a place where folks can come in and hang lights, and everybody brings their own lights to your venue. Then you just need to show in your contracts and your venue contracts that they bring their own.
Perfect.
Yep. So you can rent, you can contract to borrow. If you borrow them, that's okay. You just need to show that you had a written agreement that you share with your friends. Okay. So if you do not own or operate your own performing space, then you need to prove that the spaces in which you perform, the majority of them are qualified venues. So how do we prove up the majority? Well, contracts. We're going to show, here are all of our contracts. We're going to say, this is all the performances we had in 2019, and here's all the contracts showing that the majority of those venues were qualified venues. Now, sometimes, again, like in that school scenario, like if you did a field trip to a school, that's not a qualified venue. But if that's just a side thing that you do on your off season, then it shouldn't be a problem because you should have enough other performances and activity that it averages out and the majority of your spaces are qualified. Okay. Okay. And also you need to provide, so to prove up the, you'll need to, okay, so to prove up the February 2020, you need the box office reports and you need any and all contracts from February 2020. So contracts with performers or contracts with venues, the box office list, and also your marketing materials. Okay, so the other piece about employing somebody who does, so you need to have at least one person that performs these two job functions, or at least two of these job functions. So if you have a different person that does them, that's great. It's fine. Box office manager, stage manager, sound engineer, booker, promoter, security. Now, let's say you have a festival and you don't need security or stage manager year round. So you get one from the local union, right? From the local stagehands union. You contract with the local stagehand union to bring in a stage manager if you're on a union stage. If you're not on a union stage, then you might hire your buddy to be your stage manager, right?
Right.
All you need, guess what? Can you guess what it is? What do you need, Justin, to prove it?
A written contract or agreement.
Written contract or agreement. That's it. That's all you need to show that you regularly, if you have a security service that you use, because a lot of venues require you to use their security service. Some venues provide all of this to you. You don't need to bring your own stage manager because it's a union stage and they require the union stagehands and the stage manager that comes with the venue. That will be in, guess what? The contract with the venue. It'll say explicitly, we're going to provide the box office, we're going to provide the stage manager, and we're going to provide security. So boom, covered. As long as those functions are being performed, then you're covered. Now, if it's an employee, how do we prove that?
Job descriptions?
Job descriptions, because we have to provide an employee list. So we have to provide an employee list.
And that's the FTEs, correct?
Yes, the FTEs. We have to provide a list of employees, their job titles, how much they make, whether or not they're full-time or part-time, whether or not they're furloughed or active. So let's say I used to have a box office manager when my box office was open, but I don't have a box office manager anymore. Well, you're going to provide your, and this is required for everyone, no matter which category you fit into, you've got to provide your February 2020 payroll. Now, if you're seasonal, so you didn't have anybody on that worked in February, you had like 3 people, and normally you have more than that, and you have your stage manager, you're going to provide a full employee list and the status of all of those employees now, as of the day that the portal opens, whatever day that is. So if you furloughed everyone, then you're going to have a list here of all of those employees, what their job description is, and that they're furloughed, and that you will bring them back when you reopen. Or if they've moved on, you have to say that you're going to replace them.
Yep.
Okay, because some people didn't wait around. they had to move on, and they had to find other jobs. I know it's going to be devastating for some industries when they come back, because a lot of artisans had to find other places and move.
Mhm.
Okay. So you got your okay. Are you a nonprofit producing free events? If you are producing free events, then the events must be produced and managed primarily by paid employees and not by volunteers. So it's okay if the event is free as long as you meet the other standards, right? But you will need to prove that everybody that works there is getting paid. Okay. And you can prove that with your February 2020 payroll records. Or if you are seasonal and nobody worked then you would go back
To that month you've chosen for everything else.
Exactly, Justin.
But you must make sure it's the same month for everything. You can't say, oh, I'm giving you payroll from July, but I'm going to give you ticket reports from August. You got to be consistent.
Absolutely. And if you're not consistent and they reject you, do you get a chance to fix it, Justin?
Yes.
No, you don't.
No.
No. If you submit anything incorrectly into the SVOG portal, they're not going to give you a chance to correct it. If you have missing information, they're not going to give you a chance to submit it later.
And the reason that I did that is because I needed all of you out there in Folkland who are used to, oh, I didn't understand the question, to know that it's not a yes, it's a no. I knew she was going to make us all cry. You've got to be prepared. And actually, that's why your part-time controller and so many other great financial professionals are so important. So absolutely make sure that you utilize the resources that they're providing, because you literally get one chance.
One shot. And I love every other tweet to the SBA is like, please give us a chance to fix it after you reopen it. We're giving you a chance to fix it after you broke it. Give us a chance to fix it if we break it. Yeah, that's falling on deaf ears, because that would take the grant process too long to distribute. Yeah. And they're working towards getting this money out as quickly as possible. Yep. And if they're holding money so that people can fix things or get stuff updated, then they're not going to be able to know how much money they have to distribute, and they're not going to be able to move through these quickly. So we want them to move through them quickly. So we actually don't want them to give us a second chance. We want to do everything right the first time, get our money as quickly as possible, and help them be efficient, because they are struggling, y'all.
Yep. Obviously, as evidenced by last Thursday.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, and today. Well, I knew when the portal wasn't open in the morning that it was going to crash. I said, first thing in the morning, I sent out an email saying, okay, they're announcing it's going to open at noon. By 2 p.m., we're going to get a tweet that says, we're working on it. We're sorry. And at 1:30, it crashed. And I got a bunch of emails from my colleagues saying, you called it.
Well, it was so funny because the SBA at first did not tweet anything. There was a poor SBA employee that was, I guess, following the hashtag and just kept on jumping in and apologizing for stuff before the SBA actually stepped up and said something. So yes, it was a whole lot of going like this in the dark.
Oh, and it was so scary. And everybody converted their files because they were very specific on what file types they were going to upload. So you had tons of people changing their file types the night before for hours. And then they wouldn't take any uploads.
Right. Nothing. It wouldn't upload anything.
Nothing. So they are going to still have that very specific file type requirement. And I really just emphasize saving documents the way they want them saved the first time, so you don't have to go back and convert them. It's going to be basically PDFs.
PDFs are your friend.
PDFs. Just give them everything in PDF.
Even if you sign up for an Adobe Pro account for 1 month and cancel it later, worth it. PDF.
PDF everything. Well, in Microsoft, you can print a PDF for free.
Yes.
Okay. So the last thing for this group, and then we're going to move on to our talent reps. The last thing for this group is your marketing materials. And we talked about the marketing materials before as a way to prove up that you put your performances on sale 60 days in advance. But if you qualified with the revenue and you don't need that ticket sales 60 days in advance, you still have to provide your marketing materials. They want proof that you're a real thing. And they want the marketing materials for that February 2020, unless you get to pick another month because nothing happened in February. Let's say you had one single performance in February. You still have to choose February.
Which, frankly, let's be honest, there's less work to do. I was a little kind of bummed because our February, we had, I believe, 6 performances. It was, or 7, maybe it was 7. It wasn't our normal month. February, it was, I think we even postponed some things due to some inclement weather. So, you know, we were not, you know, as busy in February as we normally are. And you know, you kind of always want to put your best foot forward. So I'm like, you know, August is where we have so many revenues, and the fall is when we have so many amazing concerts. And okay, February it is. So
yes, and then February ended up being less work. So, and you're so lucky if you only have one performance in February. That's only one marketing material, one contract. You know, it's only a few things that you have to pull together. Okay, so if you're a talent rep, what are your eligible? Ooh, we're running out of time. We're gonna have to move quickly. All right, talent reps, you're getting this quick. So talent reps are at least 70% of your operation spent representing or managing 2 or more artists or entertainers. You have to have 2.
2 or more. And that is such an incredibly low bar. I know so many of you represent a wonderful array of artists, but I also know some of you have boutique management where you're only representing 2, 3, 4. 2 is the threshold. That's
2 is it.
So wonderful.
2. And how do we prove it? Contracts. We're gonna write. All we have to do is have that the agent agreement or the management agreement. So whether you're their manager or their agent, doesn't matter. Whatever you're calling yourself, if you're representing talent, you need the contract, right? And you have to prove that you had 2 active clients in 2019 and in 2020. Even if that client did absolutely nothing in 2020, because January and February are their off months, and then COVID happened, and so they've just been sitting there. As long as that contract is active, then that counts. Okay, 70% operations threshold is proven via your 2019 quarterly financial statements. You're also going to need your 2020 quarterly financial statements so that you can compare quarters, right? And show you had that 25% loss. But your 2019 is what's going to prove that you hit that operations threshold. And then you're also going to need the venue contracts you negotiated for that artist. So if you book that artist in a venue, then whatever contract you had with that venue for that artist's performance, you're going to need that too. For February 2020, or pick another month. Okay. We talked about that. Okay, there's an application checklist because we have to go fast. The application checklist has all of the stuff that you need. It is on the SVO, the SVOG website on the SBA. It's sba.gov. I have a link to it in the links. Or in the documents, there's a list of links, and it's in there. And then last thing I want to show you guys.
Oh, it's also on the screen right now. Thank you, Ethan.
Oh, yay. Thank you, Ethan. Okay. So now we can look at the budget, because that's the next thing that I really want you guys to think about having to prepare. And I totally found this I went digging. In the FAQs, they inadvertently said, ooh, is it blinking for you guys or just me?
Oh no, Ethan was giving us a full rave.
All right. So we're raving here with the budget. This is in your documents, so it's not.
Click the link in the documents.
Click the link in the documents and we'll get that. Yeah, look at that, please. So I'm going to stop that share because, woof.
Maybe, do you want to stop and then retry real quick just so that we
Yeah,
can get it
let's
up on the
see if
screen?
maybe it cleans it up. Yeah. All right. Less of a laser light show now. Right? Yes. Okay.
Yay, there we go.
Hey. Okay. So I just want to go through this very quickly. This is what you're going to propose as your budget of what you're going to do with the money when they give it to you. Now, when you go through the application portal and you answer all of the questions and you upload all the documents and you give them your numbers, they're going to spit out a proposed award amount. It will not be reduced by that second PPP draw. You have to do that yourself. So the budget that the budget you send in should be whatever that proposed award amount is they give you, that they spit out and tell you, this is how much the maximum amount you could possibly get. You're going to reduce that by your PPP, and then that's the total amount that you need spread out in these categories. So payroll cost, rent payments, utility payments, your scheduled mortgage payments. You can't prepay a mortgage. You cannot prepay any debt. You can make debt payments, but no debt that you incurred since February 15th, 2020. So let's say,
I'll give a great example about that. So
yes.
The Philadelphia Folk Song Society, we have a line of credit, and we had a line of credit that we had utilized a portion of as of February of 2020. But obviously, as the pandemic raged on, we had to go a little bit more into our line of credit. We even have been approved to increase our line of credit. So as such, we need to show what our line of credit had been drawn down upon up until that point, that February of 2020.
Absolutely. And then you can make payments. You can clear out that line of credit for everything that happened before February 15th, 2020. Anything that happened after, not so much. Your worker protection expenditure. So this is any PPE or health insurance. That's why it says including fringe. So this is your health insurance. You can include this here. Payments to independent contractors, just none over 100,000. And then any other ordinary and necessary business expenses, including maintenance costs. Now, if you have refunds that you need to make, let's say you sold some tickets to some shows that got canceled, right? We all had kind of a couple of moments during this pandemic where it looked like things were maybe going to get better. And so people maybe started scheduling things, maybe some outdoor things, and then there was a spike, and then that didn't happen. And so now we need to refund these tickets, but maybe we've been holding back because it's a pandemic and you're in a crisis. Well, you can use the proceeds from the SVOG to refund those tickets. And it would go right here under other ordinary and necessary business expenses. Administrative costs, so any fees and licensing that you have to pay. Operating leases, insurance. No, operating leases in effect as of 2/15/2020. If you got a new office after that, then they're not going to let you make any payments on it with the SVOG money. Insurance, advertising, production, and transportation, travel. Now, capital expenditures related to producing a theatrical or live performing arts production. Let's say you need a new lighting rig, or you need new sound equipment, or you need, in order to go back out on the road, you had to sell your dobro. Tragedy. You had to sell your dobro to make it through the pandemic. I know. Well, guess what? You can get a new one. The SVOG covers that. Now, it cannot be the majority of your budget. It has to be the minority amount, but you, not the dobro. It has to be the less than the majority. It has to be less than 50%, but you can kind of fix whatever problems you might have. Or if you need to, let's say you have dancers and they need new costumes, or you do crazy sets and you need to build a new set. You can use this money for that. So you'll propose it here. Now, let's say they're like, you can have $10 million. And you're like, oh, that's crazy. We don't need $10 million. And that feels wrong because there's a whole community and I don't want to take their money. And what we really need is $2 million. So if you put in your budget for $2 million, if you propose a budget for $2 million, they're only going to fund you for $2 million. Now, what happens if while we're spending this money, I know I only have 1 minute left. What happens if while we're spending this money, we overspend in one category or another? That's okay, as long as you're within 10% of that original amount in each category.
So it's within 10% of the 45% of the 2019 gross
earned revenue.
Earned revenue.
Yes.
And this is for the annual, not for the sliver.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. I like this. Technically, we can get an extra 15 minutes. Good. Good. I don't want to. Yes. Okay. So we've covered the budget restrictions. Now I just want to be able to talk very briefly about more money. Let's say you've just listened to Justin and I ramble on about the SVOG and you're thinking, none of this applies to me. I'm just waiting until you get to the part where there's other money. Here's that part. So other money, the NEA is doing $50,000 emergency grants, but you have to have gotten money from them before. The NEH, not before like ever in the last 4 years. They want you to have gotten money from them.
Gotten money in the last 4 years. Yeah, that's the big
4 years. Yeah, that's the big thing. So you have to have gotten money from them in the last 4 years, which would be hard because their budget was like nothing. And then
the last 4 years were tough 4 years for the NEA and the NEH.
Yes, but their budgets doubled with ARPA. Their budgets doubled with ARPA. So they do have quite a bit of $50,000 emergency grants that they can get out to you. So if this doesn't apply to you, go look there. They also have some cool like community project grants. So if you that are new, that you don't have to have you don't have to have gotten money in the last 4 years. So if you want to do some kind of community project, go look at the NEA's website because they've got some cool money available. NEH is doing emergency grants. Now also the artistrelief.org and sweetrelief.org both have direct grants for artists. So you know musicians and you're thinking, well, this leaves out all the musicians that I love so dearly. Sweetrelief.org and artistrelief.org have those direct grants to musicians. And those are not federal money, that's private money. So it does not affect their PPP. It does not affect anything else. They can get that money. And then for organizations, creative/capital.org. And I'm going to put this over here and Ethan can add it to those links later. So it's creative-capital.org. They have a complete list of all the artists and arts grants out there. It is fantastic. Perfect. Thank you. So this is a full list of all the private foundation money, all the emergency grants that have been going out. Get there. Okay. That's it for extra money. Justin, did you have any closing thoughts? Did we have any questions that we could answer? I guess if we can go 15 minutes over, then we have some time to answer questions, right?
Absolutely. And I just wanted to say that if you've heard all of this and it has both simultaneously invigorated you that probably for the first time in your professional year or career, you can get money from the government for the arts. Because I used to work for the Pennsylvania Ballet and I've worked with the Opera Company in Philadelphia. We got money from the government. In the folk industry, not as much. So this is absolutely landmark and life-changing for so many of us. This is real money that we are able to access that is going to help us to reopen and to recover. I also know that while simultaneously made so many of you excited, probably gave a lot of you panic attacks. And that's understandable because I was there. When they first started trickling out information, it was so inconsistent. There just wasn't anywhere to really get everything. Then they started putting out FAQs, and the FAQs canceled each other out. There were certain things in the FAQs that I was like, oh, okay, wait, scroll up. What? And it just got a little more confusing. And again, you've only got one shot. I urge you to watch all 4 of the videos that Justine has provided access to and that NERFA is going to have access to from the site, from nerfa.org, as well as to reach out to YPTC or any of the wonderful finance professionals in your life to make sure that everything that you have is up to snuff, because this is an amazing opportunity and you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your artists, you owe it to your audiences to take the time to do this. The fact that it crashed so spectacularly in flames last Thursday is just an opportunity for you to really make sure that you can get it right.
Absolutely. This is about not just saving our arts, but saving our communities, right? Because so my husband was an arts fundraiser for years, right? And the thing that he talked about all of the time to get people to invest in art was it is an economic driving factor in our communities, right? Better art, better access to better music, and live entertainment is what brings people into our communities, right? And it's what pulls us together as a community. So this is an opportunity for us to save ourselves and with the help of the government.
All right. So when it comes to questions, I had one that was messaged to me about house concerts. So we have a lot of house concert presenters that present artists either in their space or in another space. And this is something that is a little bit more unique to the folk community. But these are genuine presenters that present sometimes 12 to 25 or even more artists in a given year. So with reference to if you are the owner of the space and it's a residence that you're presenting in, is there any information that you can give to people in that manner if they are hoping to apply, or are they just needing to look at some of the other money that's out there?
Well, if the majority of what they're doing is happening in the house parties, in the house.
And these are fully, they are advertised, they are ticketed, they are.
Is there a defined performing
there's a defined space, even if that
audience?
space is a living room. So they would just have to create a floor plan.
If they have a lighting rig and sound mixing equipment and a public address system that they're renting out or own, that's being utilized in that space, and they have a floor plan, and performances are happening there. I think it's the average is 4 performances per month, so 48 performances per year.
Okay.
Will be kind of that threshold.
Got it. That's a great point to make.
So it's just got to happen often. It's got to be primarily a performance space more than it is a house.
Yep. But for some of you that are doing weeklies, then that absolutely applies to you.
Yes, that absolutely applies to you. Yes, it does. Do we have any other questions? Ethan floating in the background. Did you get any questions in? I guess not.
Okay. So I'm just going through some of the questions that I have that are coming through to me because people see that I'm here and feel the need to text me, which is great, and Facebook Messenger. So this one is again specifically about the people that present in multiple spaces. Are you going to need to provide multiple floor plans, multiple lighting rig information, et cetera, or is it just where you present during the month of February?
It's just where you present in the month of February. But if you're the performer, then you just need the contract with that qualified venue. You don't have to provide the floor plan for the venue where you perform if it's not yours. If you are a producer and not an owner operator of a venue, then you don't have to do all of that. You just have to have the contract with the qualified venue.
which is great. I have a we have a question here.
Okay.
We are an all-volunteer nonprofit organization. We produced all paid ticketed events, though, with well-paid performers in qualifying venues, but we have no actual employees. Will we be able to apply?
Did you have any independent contractors that you paid to execute those performances?
And it's those big six. That's stage managers,
Mhm.
that's sound
Box
equipment,
office?
box office, et cetera, et cetera.
Right? So if you do not have any employees, but you do have some contracts where your organization is paying for those things, right? Paying for a contract for security, paying for a contract for a box office, paying for a contract for a booker, for stage manager, any of those things, then that's okay as long as you have those independent contractor contracts. Agree?
Loophole question.
Mhm.
What if they have somebody that is their sound person and they, receive a fee, but they donate it back to the organization?
As long as they have receipts for that fee that was paid and then it was physically donated back. So we're looking for, then you'd have to have those two transactions there. You're going to have proof you paid, and then they can choose to give it back to you. But if they just said, don't pay me, I'm donating it back, and there was no tax receipting done for that, you didn't give them a tax receipt for their donation, then we can't count that.
So tax receipting is your friend.
I mean, anyways, yes, tax receipting is
in general. Anytime that's the answer.
Stewardship. That's how you keep donors, right?
Right.
You tell them thank you and you let them get their tax write-off. Which this year, that's another option for money too. This year, it's extended in 2021, the above the line contribution deduction. So your donors, every person can get a $300 deduction and they don't have to itemize for contributions. Married couples get $600. So if you have a bunch of small dollar donors, letting them know that they can contribute $300 and actually get the tax write-off and not have to itemize, that you could really expand your donor database, your donor base this year.
This for 2021.
This 2021, this would be the year to expand that donor base and take advantage of that, because we never get that.
Writing that down for me.
Yeah, that's the thing I've been saying is like, that should be at the bottom of every email. That should be in your signature. Did you know? You don't have to itemize this year. Take the deduction. Give us some money.
Okay, so I have a question from a festival that says, we are a festival that has paid staff, but we have significantly more volunteers than we have paid staff.
As long as you have some paid staff, that's okay.
That's okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got
These
that.
are great questions, guys.
I have a question about the lighting, sound, and PA system.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, if, again, a lot of people are, this one person is saying that they have absolutely no idea where any receipts are, and that because they have not been using them and having performances, that they have let their insurance coverage lapse while they are keeping all of that equipment currently safe. What are options that I have? So you were saying about taking photos and getting appraisals.
Taking photos and getting appraisals. The other option is if you had insurance on it in February 2020, that insurance policy lists them. You owned them in February. You can use that insurance policy before it lapsed. That's fine. Otherwise, you're gonna have to take pictures and go get a quick appraisal as quick as you can.
Okay, so next question I have is, if this is, let's say, reopening next week and I'm not ready the second that it opens, how are they giving out the money? Is it first come, first serve? Is it by number of employees or the amount of money? What is my concern in getting everything ready?
Okay, so it is going to be first come, first serve, but they're going to prioritize who they look at. So in the first bucket, they're going to look at the organizations that had a 90% loss. So if you were in that threshold where you had a 90% total loss, then you're going to get looked at first.
And is this annual to annual, or is this quarterly to quarter?
Quarter to
For
quarter.
that quarter, perfect.
Right. So if you had that,
pick your biggest loss quarter. That's the biggest thing.
That's the biggest thing, right? Is to tell them, yes, we had this huge loss. So then there will be another window, and that's going to last for 2 weeks. So the 90%ers get a 2-week head start. Now, if you're in that next round, right? I think it's the 50% round. If you're in that next round after 2 weeks, it is still going to be first come, first serve. You get in line by when you submit in the portal. But you only get one shot at this. And there are going to be a lot of people. This is very confusing and it's very complicated. And people are really overconfident about their ability to do paperwork. So you're going to have a lot of people that get disqualified and aren't going to get in. The other thing is, if you're not ready, it is still worth it to apply as soon as you are, because if they run out of money, they're going to give $0 awards that are your placeholder, so that if Congress appropriates more money, which they probably will if they use up all of this money, because we have a very different kind of environment right now. So they're going to give you a $0 award that's a placeholder award. So you'll already be in line for the next round. So apply. If you are eligible, even if it takes you 2 weeks to pull all of this together, apply.
That is the biggest and best advice. That's all the questions that I've received. Ethan, do we have anything else? All right, I will take that as a no, which means it is exactly 9:15. So high five, we got that right on time. No purse, thanks, Ethan. So again, this is something that is incredibly scary, but there are resources that are out there. NERFA really wants to. Oh, sorry, we do have one question. We're a UU church. A paid staff person oversees our coffee house as part of their role. He does the promotion, signs the booking agreements. Do we likely qualify? And if we had 20,000 gross ticket sales, do we estimate 9,000, which is 45%? And when do we have to do this by? Okay, a lot of components, so let's break that down.
Let's break that down. Okay, so does the church have a fixed performance space as part of that coffee house? So is it always a performance space, and is it always an audience space in that area? Now, if the performances are happening in the sanctuary, that does not count. If you have another space like a coffee house attached that is always a performance space and always an audience space, then yes, you could qualify for this. And yes, that counts. If you have somebody who is doing your promoting and booking, even if that's not their job title, that's fine. They're doing those jobs and they're an employee. Done. Yes, 20,000. But if you had a PPP though, you would reduce it by the PPP. So if your PPP that you got already was
but we're talking about the second round of PPP. We're not talking about the first round.
That first round. So PPP you received after December 27th, 2020. So December 27th, 2020 on. So if you got money from the PPP after that, then you would reduce that $9,000 by that. And so if it's more, then you probably end up zeroing it out.
But no, that's a great question. So yes, you absolutely, and frankly, even if it comes out to be zero or it comes out to be a smaller amount or what have you, when else are we getting free money for the arts from the government?
Ask. It doesn't hurt to ask.
Exactly. Take the time, put it together. And again, remember, a lot of you coffee houses, your food that you're selling, the drink that you're selling, anything that you're doing, the merch that you've sold while you're there, both the merch for your venue and the artist merch, because you took that money and you paid out the artists. I mean, these are all things that you just sincerely need to really gather up. Again, we had the wonderful happenstance that in the month of February, we only had, I did double check, 7 performances in our venue during that month. So for us, we didn't have too many things to pull. But at the same time, it's just good to have all of that information and have it at the ready. So that's great. So if there aren't any additional questions, I just want to say again, this is scary. This is anxiety inducing. This is something that, oh, we got to thank you. This is something that we are not really accustomed to in, a lot of our venues. Even those of us that are nonprofits that apply to grants all the time, this is weird. This one is weird.
Yes. Yes.
And again, it's been very confusing from the get-go. And I think they're a little confused. So please, please, please utilize the resources. Go to NERFA, go to YPTC, go to Justine and her amazing video series. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel so that when they release the updates that you will get that update immediately and be able to check it out and watch it. They are absolutely worth your time, and pay attention, because I may or may not have been doing other work while watching that third video apparently. So don't multitask. This is important. This is the future of your organization, of your venue, of your spaces, of your artists, of your audience.